How to be a successful birth photographer. For subjectives, students will be able to verbalize the important things birth photographers need to talk about with a prospective family. They'll be able to verbalize the birth photography checklist and some of the challenges that comes along with birth photography. Topic is important because some birth photography tips and teachings can be really helpful, but there are times where people just don't really understand the birth process and when it's appropriate to take photos, when it's not, the best angles, the timing. It's a very intimate, delicate process with birth, and you can either capture the really good moments of it or the bad moments depending on your skills as a birth photographer. You want to be able to plan and have a checklist, be able to jump on the fly, have all your supplies with you, backup plans, snacks, extra clothes, drinks, cushions, because birth is unpredictable. The whole point is for you to tell their birth story in the best light possible. There's important things that every birth photographer needs to talk about with prospective families. When to call, clear expectations of do they want pictures in early labor, active labor. Our goal is not to show up as a birth photographer after the birth because you defeated the purpose of what they're purchasing. There are going to be rare situations where they don't get much warning, they call you and you jump and you go, but if you are holding off and not quite understanding the labor process, there may be times you miss the birth because of your own timing and pushing off. You need to understand the provider and the hospital guidelines. Every facility and every practitioner has a different expectations, policies, protocols, and taking photos and videos during the birth process is going to be dictated based on the facility you're at. If you're doing a home birth, it's super easy because it's whatever the family wants. If you're doing a birth center, it's usually pretty laid back. It's the midwife in the birth center. Most of the births you're going to do birth photography for are in the hospital setting, and they have the most restrictions of what you can take photos and videos of. So you need to have a real clear conversation with the client, learn which facility they're going to deliver at, and understand and represent yourself and the hospital with their policies and understandings so that the family, you can have a contract and say you'll do videos of the birth, but then you get to the hospital and the hospital says, no, you can't have a video or a photo of the birth. Parents' expectations, what are they wanting? Are they wanting 12 videos and photos? They're wanting 20, 200. Are they wanting you at their house before they go to the hospital? Are they wanting you to stay 2 hours after delivery? Like, you negotiate based on your packages and what you're willing to do, but also have clear understandings with the families of what they want out of you. Do they want images of just the mom and the baby, the family, the birth actually occurring, or just skin to skin, the labor process? It just depends, and birth can be unpredictable, especially if something is going on that wasn't anticipated. Your services and details, your skills, the equipment you bring, expectations, what are they paying for? What does it look like to be on call? Because there's dual accountability. If you are saying, I'm going to come for birth, and they don't give you any, you say, hey, you need to let me know when you're in early labor, and the client has been in early labor for 6 hours and all of a sudden says, I need you now, you should have some realistic expectations of like, you've known for 6 hours and I needed to coordinate things. I have my kids, I have responsibilities. As soon as you're in early labor, you have to call me. You didn't follow your portion of the accountability. Your goal is to try to get as much of the birth, pregnancy, postpartum period as you can in what your package is. So tips to do some photos, some shoulds and should nots. Um, don't shoot as much as you can. Your job is to be the product, not the center of attention. You're going to work around the lighting, the angles, the space that the birth team allows you to sit in, and you're not going to be the center of attention. You have to capture the moments that are happening, and don't stand in front of the important people. Don't be in the way. Know everybody's roles. Don't talk loudly. Eating, snacking. You don't want to interrupt the birth process. Flashes aren't recommended. You want to be a fly on the wall that's taking beautiful pictures, whether it's home, birth center, hospital. This is still an intimate, private space. Things you can do. You want to be able to make photography of the birth ultimately the top priority because that's what they paid you for unless they say otherwise. You need to know your equipment really, really well. You have to practice in home settings, birth centers, hospital, low and unusual lighting settings, have good contracts, equipment, snacks, travel bag, extra gas in the vehicle, being quiet, being out of the way, and really having the ability to read the room, understand medical terminology. That's why a lot of doulas and midwives also become birth photographers because they really can understand the birth process and where things are at and where things are heading. So here's a list of some gear that's recommended: a main camera, backup camera, batteries, flash, two lenses, at least a couple memory cards, couple camera batteries, battery charges, flash, spare batteries, phone, and a phone charger. There are different trainings out there. This is one of many, but you definitely want to do some training about the birth process, photography, dark lighting, intimate situations, unpredictable. You're capturing candid in the moment what's happening. You're not going to set up photo shoots. You're not going to have props. You're not going to be in control of the situation. You're going to have to take photos of what is happening. During labor, your facial expressions, the calm, the neutral, not looking disappointed, not looking frustrated, not looking, you don't want negative energy brought into the room. You just want to be the one taking photos and being behind the camera as much as possible. Do they want their other children involved? Do they want their family and friends and pets in the pictures? Do they want a video with music? Do they want photos of the scene and the settings and what's happening? Or do they just want photos of the birth process, close up of her belly and the intimacy, the hallway, the team? Get as much as you can within your packages, and then you can edit things down and you can delete what isn't needed. During the labor, facial expressions of the mother, the partner, the crying, the happiness, the sadness, the joy, the different birthing positions, understanding the different locations, the body positions, taking photos of a woman squatting and in lithotomy position and hands and knees. They're going to have different angles to consider with getting the best view of the birth and the expressions families having. And so that's a skill. It takes time to learn that. After delivery, especially immediately delivery, the joy, the excitement of the mom and the family members, snuggling the baby skin to skin, the celebration of the birth team, the baby being weighed and assessed, the family holding the baby breastfeeding, footprints, the quiet time. You want to catch every angle possible. Challenges photography, obviously the lighting. These are quiet, dark, dim areas, and flash is typically not recommended when you're doing birth photography. So you're going to have to work with the lighting. You're going to want some pictures that are dark. You're going to want to take advantage of a little bit of light that is in the room. Maybe you turn on a light for a split second and get permission, and then you turn it right back off to get some photos. So there are some ways. Using high ISO is inevitable, and then a nice wide open aperture can bring in more light. During the actual birth, a lot of times there's no overhead light in a home birth center setting, but in a hospital, it's usually pretty bright in the room. So you just want to take advantage of what the birth team is doing, and you work around the settings that's being given to you and where they're telling and stand. The birth space can be small, it can be limited, especially in a hospital setting, and they have a lot of staff at the birth. So you're going to want to be wherever they're telling you to be. Wide shots are definitely helpful to tell the whole story in the room. C-sections, whether it's scheduled or it's unplanned, it's still their birth story. And especially if it's an emergency C-section, they're going to go under general. You're not going to be able to capture the birth for them, but if they can have their partner, they can have the birth photographer back in the OR, and she wants pictures of that aspect. And you can decide, do you want pictures of the baby being delivered out of the abdomen, or do you just want pictures of baby snuggling next to mom, like in this beautiful picture here? Many people, especially if it's an unplanned C-section, don't want the birth photographer back there, or the staff allows the birth photographer back there. You're usually going to get the time after she's out of the recovery room and before they go to the OR. As an overall conclusion, Birth photography is not always about the shot. It's about the situation, the telling the story, the woman, her family, and there's so many aspects of birth that's unpredictable. You have to be well versed in your timing, being able to jump for the birth. They may have 3-day labors, they may have 3-hour labors. It may be a slow and steady medical induction. It may be a heavy, fast birth, and she's had 3 children before. It may be in the home setting, the hospital, the birth center. She may want every picture possible, and she may only want just more conservative pictures before and after the baby is delivered. So the challenges associated with birth photography is dictating what to make pictures of, get the right shot, your package is appropriate to what you want to offer and be available for, and what the family is expecting out of you.